Mei-Ling Chen, a 5-year-old black Asian girl, sat curled up on a metal chair in the farthest corner of the gym. Her small hands gripped the hem of her pale yellow dress, a hand-me-down from her mother's childhood. The fabric was faded, the skirt slightly too short, and the lace at the sleeves frayed at the edges. To Mei-Ling, it was painfully obvious. The other children spun in vibrant, new dresses, blues and pinks that shimmered with every twirl. Earlier, Mei-Ling had tried to smile, but the whispers had started before she even stepped on stage. "Is that from a second-hand shop?" one girl asked, loud enough for others to hear. "Looks like it's from my auntie's closet," another giggled. A boy by the snack table chimed in, "Don't get too close, it might smell like old fabric." The sting of their laughter had pushed Mei-Ling to her corner, where she pulled her chair tight against the wall, trying to disappear as she watched the other kids rehearse for the spring performance. Then she noticed him. Hiroshi Tanaka, tall and broad-shouldered, stood near the back of the gym. His tailored suit stood out among the casual PDA sweaters and windbreakers. He was the event's honorary guest, a billionaire who funded local after-school programs and had donated the new playground outside. But instead of watching the stage, his eyes were fixed on Mei-Ling. Hiroshi crossed the gym slowly, careful not to draw attention. When he reached her, he crouched down to meet her gaze. "You look like you're carrying the whole world on your shoulders," he said gently. "What's wrong, little one?" Mei-Ling shook her head, staring at her lap. "My dress is ugly," she whispered. "Everyone's laughing." Hiroshi tilted his head. "Ugly? I don't see ugly. I see a brave girl who showed up today, ready to sing for her school." Mei-Ling glanced up, uncertain. "But it's old. It's not like theirs." He leaned in slightly. "Do you know what my mother used to say? Clothes don't make you special, you make the clothes special. And right now, you're making that dress the most important one in this room." Mei-Ling blinked, taking in his words. "Even if it's old?" "Especially if it's old," Hiroshi replied. "It means it has a story. And you, Mei-Ling, are part of that story now." Across the gym, the girls who had laughed earlier were watching, whispering again. One smirked, "Why's the rich guy talking to her?" The words cut through the air, sharp as a blade. Hiroshi's eyes flicked toward them briefly before returning to Mei-Ling. "How about we show them what confidence looks like," he said. "One dance, you and me, just to prove a point." Mei-Ling hesitated, glancing around. "Everyone will stare." "Good," Hiroshi said with a grin. "Let them see what happens when you believe in yourself." She took his hand, small and warm in his, and let him lead her to the open floor. The chatter around them faded into silence. The school's volunteer pianist, catching the moment, began playing a gentle waltz. Mei-Ling's steps were small and tentative, but Hiroshi moved slowly, guiding her with care. "Breathe," he murmured. "Just follow me. You're doing fine." Halfway through the song, Mei-Ling's shoulders began to relax. Her eyes lifted from her shoes to meet his, and a shy smile broke across her face. For the first time that afternoon, she forgot about the faded dress. When the music stopped, Hiroshi knelt again and whispered, "That was perfect. Never let anyone tell you you're less because of what you wear. They only say it when they're afraid you might be more." The applause from a few parents was warm, but the giggles from her classmates returned as she sat down. Hiroshi noticed the shift in her face, the flicker of pride threatening to fade. Later, during the children's songs and poems, Hiroshi slipped out of the gym quietly, a plan forming in his mind. That night, he called a friend who owned a custom children's clothing boutique downtown. "I need a dress," he said. "A princess dress, one that makes a little girl feel like she owns the stage. I need it by Friday." The next morning, Mei-Ling returned to school. The teasing hadn't stopped. "Hey, vintage girl," a boy called out. "My grandma has curtains like your dress." Mei-Ling bit her lip and kept walking, repeating Hiroshi's words in her head, "You make the clothes special." It helped, just a little. She didn't know that across town, seamstresses were measuring silk and tulle, stitching tiny pearls onto a bodice, and folding layers of satin in the color of a sunrise. She didn't know Hiroshi had chosen the fabric himself, picturing the joy on her face when she saw it. All she knew was that someone important had seen her yesterday, not just her dress. And maybe, just maybe, the next time she stepped onto that floor, she wouldn't hide in the corner. Friday morning dawned bright over the small neighborhood in Detroit. Mei-Ling woke to her mother, Mrs. Chen, humming in the kitchen, the air carrying the faint scent of congee and green onions. She pulled on her pale yellow dress again, the fabric familiar under her fingers. It was all she had for the spring showcase that afternoon. She sighed, recalling the laughter from earlier in the week. At school, the gym buzzed with decorations, pastel streamers draped from basketball hoops, folding chairs neatly aligned for parents and guests. Children darted about in colorful outfits, frilly dresses, crisp shirts, and shiny shoes. The same girls who had mocked Mei Ling on Monday were already whispering and glancing in her direction. Guess vintage girls still stuck in the same dress, one said, not bothering to lower her voice. Mei Ling kept her head down and found a seat near the sidewall. That's when she saw him, Hiroshi Tanaka, walking in with the principal, Mrs. Lee. He was dressed in a sharp gray suit today. But what caught Mei Ling's eye was the large white garment bag he carried over one arm. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on her with a small, knowing smile. Hiroshi made his way across the gym, pausing only to shake a few hands. When he reached Mei Ling, he crouched down again so he was eye level with her. "Good morning, Princess Mei Ling," he said softly. "I have something for you, but only if you're willing to be brave again today." Mei Ling's eyes widened. "What is it?" Hiroshi glanced at the garment bag. "A little magic," he replied. "Come with me." They stepped into the hallway just outside the gym. Hiroshi unzipped the bag and Mei Ling's breath caught. Inside was the most beautiful dress she had ever seen. Layers of soft tulle in a pale blush color, a satin bodice adorned with tiny pearls, and a skirt that shimmered in the hallway light. It looked like it belonged in a storybook. "I can't wear that," Mei Ling whispered. "It's too nice. It's not mine." "It's yours if you want it," Hiroshi said. "It's a gift. No strings, no cameras, just for you. Because you deserve to feel as special as you are." Mei Ling hesitated, torn between excitement and fear. "But people will say I didn't earn it." Hiroshi's voice softened. "Let them talk. What matters is how you feel when you step on that stage. Clothes can't make you who you are, but they can remind you that you belong anywhere you choose to be." Her small fingers brushed the satin. She nodded. "Okay." Minutes later, Mei Ling stepped back into the gym, the new dress flowing around her knees like a cloud. The chatter in the room dropped to a hush, replaced by a ripple of gasps. The girls who had teased her froze mid-sentence. One of them, Aiko Suzuki, muttered, "Where did she get that?" Another girl's voice hissed, "Hiroshi Tanaka gave it to her." Figures. Mrs. Chen entered just then, her eyes widening at the sight of her daughter. Mei Ling thought her mother might scold her for accepting something so expensive. But instead, Mrs. Chen's face softened. "You look beautiful, baby," she said, her voice steady. "Hold your head high." The performances began. Class by class, the children sang, recited poems, and danced small choreographed routines. When it was Mei Ling's group's turn, she took her place at the front of the line. Her heart thudded, but Hiroshi's words echoed in her mind, "You belong anywhere you choose to be." As the music started, Mei Ling sang with a clear, steady voice. She smiled, moved with the rhythm, and when the song ended, she even took a little bow. Applause filled the gym, not the polite kind, but real, warm clapping. Yet not everyone was pleased. Near the back, Aiko crossed her arms and whispered to Hana Yamamoto, "She's just trying to show off. Bet she didn't even buy that dress." The words reached Mei Ling's ears as she stepped off stage. Her cheeks burned, but she kept walking. Hiroshi met her near the doorway, smiling proudly. "That was wonderful," he said. "They still laughed," she murmured. He leaned down so only she could hear. "That's their problem, not yours. People who can't stand to see someone else shine will always try to dim the light. Your job is to keep shining." Mei Ling nodded slowly. After the showcase, as families gathered for refreshments, Aiko approached with Hana in tow. "Nice dress," Aiko said, her tone sharp. "Did your mom buy it or did you get it for free because you felt sorry for yourself?" Before Mei Ling could answer, Hiroshi stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried. "Mei Ling didn't ask for anything from me. I gave it because I wanted to, and I'd do it again for anyone who treated others with the same kindness she's shown this week." His eyes held Aiko's for a moment before he turned back to Mei Ling. "Come on, princess. Let's get you a cookie before they're all gone." As they walked toward the refreshment table, Mei Ling felt something shift inside her. The whispers didn't seem quite as loud. She still heard them, but they no longer reached as deep. That night at home, she carefully hung the dress in her closet. She didn't know when she'd wear it again, but she knew this, every time she saw it, she would remember what Hiroshi told her, that she belonged anywhere she chose to be, no matter what she wore. And deep down, she also knew that this was only the beginning. The weekend after the spring showcase was quieter than usual for Mei Ling. She spent Saturday morning in the living room, coloring at the coffee table while Mrs. Chen folded laundry. Every so often, her mother's gaze would drift toward the hallway where the blush princess dress hung carefully in the open closet. It seemed to radiate in the dim apartment light, a reminder of the moment her daughter had stepped onto that stage with her head high. But on Monday, the warmth of that memory faced its first test. The schoolyard was buzzing when Mei Ling and her mother arrived. Parents chatted near the gates. Children darted between hopscotch squares and the older kids clustered near the basketball court. Mei Ling spotted Aiko and Hana by the swings. Their heads were close together, their eyes flicking toward her before breaking into laughter. "Here comes the little charity case," Aiko called out loudly enough for others to hear. "Better watch out. She might have another rich man buying her clothes." The word stung, but Mei-ling remembered Hiroshi's voice, "Your job is to keep shining." She walked past them, chin slightly higher, and joined her friend Li Wei near the sandbox. Li Wei, a quiet girl with glasses too big for her face, gave her a small smile. "I liked your song on Friday," she said shyly. "Thanks," Mei-ling replied, her shoulders easing. By recess, however, the whispers had spread. In the lunchroom, Mei-ling could hear bits of conversation. "It's not fair. She's just showing off. Why would he even notice her?" The comments weren't always direct, but the sideways glances made their meaning clear. When she slid her lunch tray onto the table beside Li Wei, Aiko plopped down across from them. "So, Mei-ling," she began, voice sugary sweet. "When's your next dress coming? Maybe we should all ask Mr. Tanaka for one. Seems like he's giving them out for free." Mei-ling gripped her sandwich tighter. "He didn't give it to me because I asked," she said quietly. "Oh, right," Sujin said with a smirk. "He just saw you looking sad and decided you needed a pity gift." A few kids nearby chuckled. Aiko started to speak, but Mei-ling shook her head, refusing to give Sujin more fuel. Instead, she focused on her lunch, though her appetite had faded. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Mei-ling spotted Hiroshi waiting outside with Mrs. Kim. He was there to discuss expanding the school's art program, but when he saw Mei-ling, his expression softened. "How's my favorite princess?" he asked. Mei-ling hesitated. "They're still laughing at me," she admitted. "They say you gave me the dress because you felt sorry for me." Hiroshi's brow furrowed. "Do you believe that?" She shook her head. "No. But it still hurts." He crouched to meet her eyes. "When people don't understand something, they make up stories to explain it. Those stories say more about them than they do about you." Mei-ling thought about that on the walk home. She pictured the words like paper boats floating toward her. She didn't have to catch them. She could let them drift by. On Wednesday, the tension peaked. During art class, the teacher announced a "Dress as Your Hero" day for the next week, part of the school's Spirit Week. Kids buzzed about costumes, firefighters, athletes, movie stars. Sujin leaned over to Hana and stage whispered, "I bet Mei-ling will just ask Mr. Tanaka to dress her again." The giggle that followed was sharp and deliberate. Mei-ling's cheeks flushed, but instead of shrinking, she raised her hand. "Can our hero be someone we know?" she asked. "Of course," the teacher replied. "It can be anyone who inspires you." Mei-ling nodded, a small plan forming. That evening, she told her mother what happened. Mrs. Chen frowned. "People can be mean when they're jealous," she said. "But you don't have to let them make you feel small." Mei-ling looked at the princess dress in her closet. "I want to wear it again," she said. "Not to show off, but because my hero is someone who told me I belong anywhere I choose to be." Her mother smiled knowingly. "Mr. Tanaka." Mei-ling nodded. "I'm going to tell everyone why he gave me this dress, not because he felt sorry for me, but because he believed in me." On Friday, Mei-ling found a note slipped into her backpack. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message was clear: "Stop pretending. We all know you didn't deserve it." She read it twice, then folded it and tucked it away. It stung, but she thought of the paper boats. She wouldn't carry it in her heart. That afternoon, she saw Hiroshi helping Mrs. Kim unload boxes for the art room. She approached, pulling the note from her pocket. "Somebody left this for me," she said. Hiroshi read it, then met her gaze. "Sometimes courage isn't about fighting back. Sometimes it's about refusing to let them change who you are." "I'm going to wear the dress on Hero Day," Mei-ling said firmly. "And I'm going to tell them the truth." He smiled. "That's the bravest thing you could do." The weekend before Hero Day, Mei-ling and her mother took the dress out of the closet. They steamed the tulle, polished the pearls, and found a ribbon for her hair that matched the blush satin. As her mother worked, she said softly, "When I was your age, I had a dress like this. I wore it until it didn't fit anymore. It made me feel like I could do anything." Mei-ling looked at her reflection, the skirt fanning around her knees. "That's how I feel now." She didn't know how Monday would go or what Sujin would say. But she knew she'd walk into school as herself, head high, wearing the dress that was more than fabric. It was a symbol, a reminder, and she was ready to let it shine. Monday morning arrived crisp and bright, the early spring air carrying a chill but the sun promising warmth. Mei-ling woke before her alarm, her mind buzzing. Today was Hero Day. She sat up, eyes falling on the blush princess dress hanging on the closet door, glowing in the morning light. Her mother helped her into it, smoothing the tulle and tying the satin ribbon in her hair. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Chen said, stepping back. "But remember, beauty isn't the point today. It's about what you're saying." Mei-ling nodded, repeating the words she'd practiced. He gave me this because he believed in me. She took one last look in the mirror, straightened her back, and followed her mother out the door. At school, the playground burst with color. Kids dressed as firefighters, astronauts, athletes, and comic book heroes. One boy wore a homemade cape from a bedsheet, another had a cardboard shield. Mei Ling felt the stairs begin before she reached the gate. Her dress caught the morning sun, the pearls shimmering with every step. Sujin and Hannah stood near the swings, dressed as a pop star and a fashion model. Sujin's eyes narrowed. Of course, she muttered loudly. She had to make it all about her. A few kids snickered, but Mei Ling kept walking. In the gym, decorated for the morning assembly, students lined up by class. The principal, Mrs. Kim, stepped to the microphone. Good morning, everyone. Today, we celebrate our heroes, people who inspire us, make us better, and show us what courage looks like. She smiled. Each of you will share who your hero is and why. One by one, students spoke. Some chose firefighters who saved lives, others grandparents, teachers, or famous figures. When Mei Ling's turn came, her pulse quickened. She walked to the microphone, the swish of her dress echoing softly in the gym. My hero is Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka, she began, voice steady. Not because he's rich, but because he saw me when I was hiding in a corner. He told me I belong anywhere I choose to be, no matter what I'm wearing. This dress isn't about money. It's about believing in yourself, even when people tell you not to. He gave me this because he believed I could stand here today and say that. For a moment, the gym was silent. Then applause started, first from the teachers, then parents in the back, and finally some students. Mei Ling stepped away, heart racing but head high. Sujin was next. She glanced at Mei Ling before speaking. My hero is my mom, because she works hard to give me everything I want. Her words were pointed, but they lacked her usual confidence. A few kids clapped politely, but the room's energy had shifted. After the assembly, students headed to their classrooms. Mei Ling noticed Aiko walking beside her, holding her head higher than usual. You were really brave, Aiko whispered. What you said, it mattered. At recess, Sujin approached alone, without Hannah. Nice speech, she said flatly. I still think you didn't need to make it such a big deal. Mei Ling met her eyes. It wasn't about making it big. It was about telling the truth. For the first time, Sujin didn't have a quick comeback. She shrugged and walked away. Later that afternoon, Hiroshi arrived to drop off supplies for the art program. Mrs. Kim called Mei Ling to the office. When she entered, Hiroshi smiled. I heard you made quite a speech today. I told them why you gave me the dress, Mei Ling said. Not because I asked for it, but because you believed in me. Hiroshi nodded approvingly. That's the kind of truth that lasts, the kind no whisper can undo. Mrs. Kim stepped forward with a small envelope. Mr. Tanaka has decided to fund a scholarship for students to join art, music, and theater programs without worrying about cost. And Mei Ling, he'd like you to help choose the first recipient. Mei Ling's eyes widened. Me? Yes, you, Hiroshi said. Because you know what it's like to be left out for reasons that have nothing to do with your talent or heart. I think you'll make the right choice. The day passed in a blur. By the final bell, the sun cast long shadows across the schoolyard. Mei Ling walked out with her mother, the dress swaying gently in the breeze. For the first time, the whispers she heard were softer, more curious than cruel. In the car, Mrs. Chen glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You did more than wear a pretty dress today. You showed them who you are. Mei Ling smiled, thinking of the stage, the microphone, and the silence before the applause. I think maybe I showed myself, too. That night, she hung the dress back in her closet. It wasn't just a gift anymore, it was a promise to keep stepping forward, no matter who tried to push her back. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but the girl who once hid in the corner could now stand in the center of the room, and no one could take that away. The week after Hero Day felt different. The school hall seemed lighter, and while some kids still whispered, the sharpness in their voices had dulled. Even Sujin kept her distance, though Mei Ling caught her glances when she thought no one was looking. Aiko started sitting with her at lunch daily, and a few other classmates shyly complimented her speech. On Thursday afternoon, Mrs. Kim called Mei Ling to the office. Hiroshi was there, seated across from the principal's desk, a folder open in front of him. Mei Ling, Mrs. Kim greeted warmly, we're just about to start. Hiroshi gestured to a chair beside him. Remember what we talked about last week, helping choose the first student for the new art scholarship? Mei Ling nodded and climbed into the seat. Mrs. Kim slid a piece of paper across the desk. These are the names of students whose families could use help with costs for things like music lessons, art supplies, or dance classes. We'd like you to look through them and tell us who you think should be chosen. Mei Ling scanned the list. She recognized some names from her class, others from the hallways. One name stood out, Jinsu Park. She remembered seeing him sketch intricate dragons in the margins of his math homework. His pencils were always short, worn to nubs, and he'd once mentioned he couldn't join the after-school art club because of the supply fee. I think maybe Jin-soo, Mei Ling said, pointing to his name. He's really good at drawing, and I don't think he has the stuff he needs to keep doing it. Hiroshi smiled. That's a good choice, but let's make sure. You can pick anyone, for any reason you think is right. Mei Ling thought for a moment, but her mind kept returning to Jin-soo's shy smile and the way he'd lit up when their teacher praised his drawing. Yes, Jin-soo. Then Jin-soo it is, Mrs. Kim said, making a note. We'll announce it at the assembly next week. After school, Mei Ling found Jin-soo by the bike racks. Hey, she said, walking up. You're going to want to be at the assembly next Friday. Why? He asked, adjusting his backpack straps. You'll see. She grinned and skipped off, leaving him puzzled. That night, as Mei Ling and her mother prepared dinner, she told her about Jin-soo. Mrs. Chen listened quietly, a small smile on her lips. You're learning something important, Mei Ling. When someone lifts you up, the best thing you can do is lift someone else. The next week crawled by. When Friday arrived, the school gathered in the gym once more. Mrs. Kim stepped up to the microphone. Today, we're announcing the recipient of our new Tanaka Art Scholarship. This award will cover the cost of joining any art, music, or theater program the student chooses and provide the supplies they need to succeed. She looked at the paper in her hand, then back up. This year's recipient, chosen with the help of our own Mei Ling Chen, is Jin-soo Park. Jin-soo's eyes widened. His classmates began to clap, and he looked around in disbelief. Mei Ling caught his eye and gave him an encouraging nod. Slowly, he made his way to the stage, where Hiroshi handed him a certificate and a box wrapped in plain brown paper. When Jin-soo opened it, the room let out a collective "oh." Inside was a brand new set of drawing pencils, sketch pads, and watercolor paints. Jin-soo's hands trembled as he lifted the pencils, his eyes shiny. Thank you, he whispered into the microphone. I didn't think anyone noticed. After the assembly, Jin-soo approached Mei Ling in the hallway. You picked me, didn't you? He asked quietly. Mei Ling shrugged with a smile. I just knew you'd do something amazing with it. Jin-soo grinned, and for the first time, Mei Ling saw the weight lift from his shoulders. That afternoon, she noticed Soo-jin watching them from across the playground. There was something different in her expression, not anger, but curiosity. Soo-jin walked over slowly. You picked him, she asked. Yeah, Mei Ling replied. Why? Soo-jin hesitated, kicking at a crack in the pavement. I just thought he needed it most, Mei Ling said, meeting her gaze. Soo-jin didn't respond right away. Finally, she muttered, guess that's nice, before walking away. That evening, Hiroshi called Mei Ling's mother to check in. When Mei Ling got on the phone, he said, You know, I think you've started something here. People are beginning to see you as more than just the girl in the pretty dress. Mei Ling smiled. Good, because I'm more than that. She hung up, feeling lighter. The dress still hung in her closet, but now she knew it wasn't the dress that had changed things. It was her choice to stand up, speak out, and see others the way Hiroshi had seen her that first day. As the spring days grew warmer, Mei Ling felt ready for whatever came next. The Monday after Jin-soo received the scholarship, the school felt different. There was a buzz in the hallways, like something new was possible. Kids who hadn't spoken to Mei Ling before nodded at her. A few asked about the art supplies Jin-soo got and whether the scholarship would happen again. Jin-soo himself was transformed, sitting tall in art class, sketching with his new pencils. When their teacher, Ms. Lee, praised his shading, he beamed instead of ducking his head. It made Mei Ling happy, but it also made her wonder, if one small act could change so much for Jin-soo, what else could they do? During lunch, Aiko leaned across the table. You know, she said, you could talk to Mr. Tanaka about helping more kids, not just with art, but other stuff, too. Mei Ling thought about it. Maybe. But I don't know if he'd want to. Aiko shrugged. You won't know until you ask. That evening, Mei Ling paced the living room while her mother cooked dinner. Mom, she began, what if we could help more kids at school, not just Jin-soo? Mrs. Chen stirred the pot on the stove. That's a big idea, Mei Ling. You'd need help to make it happen. Mr. Tanaka could help, Mei Ling said quickly. And maybe the principal. We could make a list of things kids need, like books, sports equipment, or instruments, and figure out who could give them. Her mother smiled faintly. Sounds like you're talking about a whole program. Maybe I am, Mei Ling replied. Why not? 2 days later, she got her chance. Hiroshi stopped by the school to meet with Mrs. Kim about art room renovations. Mei Ling waited outside the office until the meeting ended, then stepped inside. Mr. Tanaka, can I talk to you for a minute? He smiled. Of course, Princess Mei Ling. What's on your mind? I was thinking about the scholarship, she began carefully. It changed things for Jin-soo. Maybe there are other kids who need help, too, with sports, music, or school supplies. What if we made a list of what kids need, and people in the community could help give it to them? Hiroshi leaned back, studying her. That's quite an idea. Mrs. Kim folded her hands. It could be a way to get the neighborhood involved in supporting the school. We'd have to manage it carefully, of course. Hiroshi's eyes softened. You're thinking bigger, Mei Ling. I like that. It'll take planning, but if you're willing to help figure it out, we can start small and see where it goes. I'll help, Mei Ling said quickly. That afternoon, Hiroshi gave her a notebook and told her to start writing down ideas. Mei Ling spent the next few days asking classmates what would make school better. She heard everything from new basketballs to more library books to homework help after school. She wrote it all down, but not everyone was thrilled. By Thursday, she overheard Soo-jin telling Hannah, she's just trying to be the teacher's pet again, like she's in charge of the whole school now. The words stung, but Mei Ling didn't let them stop her. Instead, she added a new note to her notebook: some kids need help, even if they don't think they do. On Friday, she met with Hiroshi and Mrs. Kim to share her notes. They went through the list, choosing a few ideas to try first. We'll start with a supply drive, Hiroshi said. Pencils, notebooks, maybe some sports gear. If it goes well, we can expand. Mei Ling felt a warm swell of pride. I think it will go well, Mei Ling said. The announcement about the supply drive went out the following Monday, and almost immediately, something shifted. Parents volunteered to donate items, local businesses offered discounts, and even older students asked if they could help collect supplies. One afternoon, as Mei Ling sorted boxes in the gym, Soo-jin walked in. She stood awkwardly for a moment before saying, I brought some notebooks. My mom had extras. Mei Ling looked up, surprised. Thanks. That's really nice of you. Soo-jin shrugged. I guess it's a good thing you're doing for everyone. It wasn't an apology, exactly, but it was something. When Soo-jin bent down to place the notebooks in the box, Mei Ling felt that maybe this ripple was reaching farther than she expected. By the end of the week, the gym was filled with boxes and bags. Mrs. Kim announced that the first batch of supplies would be distributed the following Monday. As Mei Ling looked over the piles of donations, she realized this, more than the dress, more than the speech, was what she wanted to be remembered for. Not just the girl who got help, but the girl who helped others. And somewhere in her mind, she knew this was just the beginning. Monday morning came with the scent of rain in the air. The sky hung low over the school, clouds heavy and swollen. As Mei Ling and her mother walked up the steps, the gym buzzed with activity, rows of tables lined with boxes of supplies, each labeled, notebooks, pencils, sports gear, art supplies. Mrs. Kim stood at the front, clipboard in hand, while volunteers bustled around. Hiroshi was there, sleeves rolled up, helping carry a box of soccer balls. Morning, princess, he greeted Mei Ling, a grin spreading across his face. Ready for our first big day? Mei Ling nodded, excitement bubbling in her chest. She imagined the smiles, the relief, maybe even hugs. But the morning didn't go as smoothly as she hoped. As the doors opened, a rush of students and parents poured in. Some waited patiently, but others pushed forward, voices raised. I signed up for basketball shoes, one parent insisted. Why's my name not on the list? A child tugged at Mei Ling's arm. They said there aren't any more paints. That's not fair. Mei Ling tried to help, guiding kids to the right tables, but the noise and confusion overwhelmed her. In one corner, Soo-jin stood with her arms crossed, watching the chaos with a faint smirk. Hannah whispered something, and they both laughed. Mei Ling's cheeks flushed. Near the art supplies table, Jin-soo was handing out sketch pads when an older boy snatched two instead of one. Hey, you're only supposed to take one, Jin-soo protested. The boy rolled his eyes and walked off. Mei Ling hurried over, but by the time she got there, Jin-soo's face was tight with frustration. Some people just don't care, he muttered. By mid-morning, supplies were running low. Mrs. Kim announced they'd have to close early and reorganize before distributing the rest later in the week. Parents grumbled as they left, and some students stomped out in disappointment. Mei Ling helped stack the remaining boxes, her excitement now tangled with doubt. Hiroshi walked over, setting down a crate of soccer balls. You look like someone who just saw their castle crumble, he said gently. It's not how I imagined, Mei Ling admitted. I thought everyone would be happy, but people were upset, and some took more than they were supposed to. Hiroshi nodded. When you try to help, you'll sometimes face pushback. People's needs and fears can bring out the best or the worst. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. Mei Ling sighed. It just feels like maybe I did this wrong. Mei Ling, Hiroshi said, crouching to her level, what you did today wasn't wrong. It was messy, yes, but every big change starts messy. The important thing is whether you're willing to learn from it. She nodded, but the weight in her chest didn't fully lift. That afternoon in the hallway, Sujin approached. Told you this whole thing would be a circus, she said, her tone smug. Mei Ling kept walking. It wasn't perfect, but it's still better than doing nothing. Sujin tilted her head. Or maybe you just wanted everyone to think you're the hero. The words hit harder than Mei Ling wanted to admit. That night, as she sat on her bed with the notebook Hiroshi had given her, she stared at her list of ideas and wondered if Sujin was partly right. Did she want to help because it was right, or because she liked being seen as the girl who could fix things? Her mother noticed her quiet mood at dinner. You can't let one hard day erase all the good you've done, Mrs. Chen said. Helping people is messy work, Mei Ling. You'll make mistakes. You'll get criticized. The question is, will you keep going? Mei Ling didn't answer right away. She thought of Jinsu's smile when he got his art supplies and the kids who left the gym with notebooks and pencils they didn't have before. The day hadn't been perfect, but it had made a difference for some. The next morning, she arrived early to help reorganize the supplies. Jinsu was already there, unpacking a fresh box of paints. We can make it better, he said without looking up. Next time, we could give out tickets so everyone gets a fair turn. Mei Ling smiled faintly. Yeah, we'll figure it out. By the time the first students arrived, the tables were neat, the volunteers ready. This time, the process moved more smoothly. Mei Ling even caught Sujin watching from the doorway, her smirk replaced with something almost thoughtful. When the last box was empty, Hiroshi gathered everyone in the gym. You all did something important here, he said. It wasn't perfect, but it mattered. And if you keep showing up, it will keep mattering. Mei Ling felt a swell of pride. The storm from yesterday had passed, leaving a clearer sky. She realized the sunshine didn't come from everything going right, it came from not giving up when things went wrong. By the following week, the supply drive had become the talk of the school. Most students were grateful for what they'd received, but a different kind of chatter began rippling through the hallways, quiet, cutting whispers that reached Mei Ling's ears when she least expected them. She just wants everyone to think she's perfect. Her mom probably told her to do it for attention. Bet she gets special treatment because of Mr. Tanaka. At first, Mei Ling tried to ignore it, keeping her head high as she walked with Aiko and Jinsu, focusing on her homework and art class. But by Wednesday, the words started to sting. She'd hear them at her locker, in the lunch line, even at recess, the voices seemed to follow her. That afternoon in art class, Mei Ling noticed Sujin at the back table with Hannah, whispering and glancing her way. They laughed, and Mei Ling's cheeks burned. She tried to focus on her drawing, but her hands shook, leaving a dark smudge on the paper. When the bell rang, she packed up quickly, eager to escape. But in the hallway, Sujin's voice trailed after her. Careful, Mei Ling. Not everyone thinks you're the little angel you pretend to be. Aiko's hand tightened on her shoulder. Don't listen to her, she whispered. But Mei Ling couldn't help it, the words had already slipped inside. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table, pushing her dinner around her plate. Her mother studied her before setting down her chopsticks. All right, Mrs. Chen said. What happened? Mei Ling shrugged. Nothing. Just people saying things. Her mother's eyes softened. You can't control what others say. You can only control how you respond. I know, Mei Ling murmured. But what if they're right? What if I do like the attention? Mrs. Chen reached across the table, taking her hand. Liking recognition for doing good doesn't make the good less real. The real test is whether you'd still do it if no one noticed. Mei Ling thought of Jinsu's smile when he got his art supplies, the kids who went home with new notebooks, the quiet thanks from parents. She realized she'd have done it even without applause, because she knew what it felt like to need something and not have it. The next day, Sujin was waiting near her locker. You know, she began, her tone sharper than usual, people are starting to think you're just using this to make yourself look better. Mei Ling met her gaze. And what do you think? Sujin hesitated for a fraction of a second. I think you're not as perfect as everyone says. I'm not perfect, Mei Ling said, voice steady. I'm just trying to help. She walked away before Sujin could reply. Later that afternoon, Hiroshi visited the school. He met Mei Ling in the library, where she was helping Ms. Lee sort new art books. I heard there's been some talk, he said carefully. Mei Ling shrugged, trying to seem unaffected. People think I'm doing this for attention. Hiroshi studied her, then pulled out a chair. Let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. When you stand up for something, someone will always try to knock you down, not because you're wrong, but because your actions make them see something they don't like about themselves. If you let every whisper stop you, you'll never get anything done. Mei Ling took a deep breath. So what do? You keep going, Hiroshi said simply. You keep showing them that your actions speak louder than their words. That weekend, Mei-ling joined Hiroshi at a community center across town, helping hand out donated coats and gloves. Most people there didn't know her, the dress, or the supply drive. They just saw a little girl smiling and offering something warm. The gratitude in their eyes made the school whispers feel small. When Monday came, Mei-ling walked into school with her head high. She passed Sujin in the hallway, who looked at her but said nothing. In class, she volunteered to help set up for the spring talent show. She spent recess talking with Jinsu about an art project they could display in the library. By week's end, the whispers hadn't stopped entirely, but they'd softened. Some shifted into curious questions. What's she working on now? Do you think she'll help with the talent show? Mei-ling realized she couldn't control what people thought, but she could keep creating reasons for them to think about the right things. She could keep planting seeds, one action at a time. As she left school that Friday, the late sun spilling gold across the playground, she knew the whispers would never define her unless she let them. The spring air carried a crisp freshness as the school buzzed with excitement. The annual talent show was approaching, and this year felt bigger than ever. Colorful posters lined the hallway walls, bursting with pictures of microphones, spotlights, and smiling faces. Mei-ling felt the energy everywhere, but beneath it was a quiet tension she couldn't shake. In art class, Ms. Lee had asked Mei-ling and Jinsu to help design decorations for the event. It was the first time Mei-ling felt truly in charge of something at school, and she took it seriously. Together, Mei-ling and Jinsu painted banners, cut out stars from colored paper, and arranged fairy lights along the library windows, where rehearsals would be held. The space began to look magical. But not everyone shared Mei-ling's enthusiasm. Sujin and Hannah had formed a small group, whispering just beyond the art room door. Mei-ling caught snippets of their conversation. "She's acting like she owns the school," Hannah giggled. "Who does she think she is?" Sujin's voice was sharper. Mei-ling's stomach twisted, but she refused to let it stop her. She focused on the stage, where she'd signed up to sing a song her mother used to hum at bedtime, a soulful tune filled with hope and resilience. It wasn't the flashiest choice, but it was hers. Rehearsals began after school. The gym transformed into a makeshift theater, the stage adorned with twinkling lights. Mei-ling's heart raced every time she stepped to the microphone. Hiroshi came to watch one afternoon, sitting quietly in the back, his presence a steady comfort. "You sound amazing," he said softly after her rehearsal. "Don Pan, don't let anyone tell you otherwise." But the whispers and stares from Sujin's group followed her like shadows. One day, Sujin approached her near the snack table. "Are you really going to sing that song?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. "Sounds like a lullaby for babies." Mei-ling squared her shoulders. "It's the song I want to sing." Sujin smirked. "Good luck with that." The day of the talent show arrived, electric with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and students packed the gym, their chatter warming the room. The lights dimmed, and the announcer's voice echoed. Magic tricks, piano solos, and comedy skits came first. Then it was Mei-ling's turn. She stepped onto the stage, her blush dress shimmering under the spotlight. The room fell silent, only the soft strum of the guitar backing her. She closed her eyes and sang, her voice soft at first, then growing stronger, carrying every hope and fear she'd held. The song spoke of courage, of standing tall against the world's weight. The words filled the gym like a gentle tide, washing away doubt. When she finished, the silence held for a heartbeat before the gym erupted in applause. Mei-ling opened her eyes to see smiles, from her mother, Hiroshi, and even some unexpected classmates. Sujin's face was unreadable, but her gaze softened slightly. Backstage, Jinsu gave her a high five. "You nailed it," he said. "That was, wow." Mei-ling smiled, her heart soaring. She'd faced the whispers and come through shining. After the show, Hiroshi pulled her aside. "You did more than sing tonight," he said. "You reminded everyone that the quietest voices can be the strongest." Mei-ling looked around at the bustling gym, the fading lights, and felt a quiet pride settle within her. She wasn't just the girl in the old dress anymore. She was a voice, a spark, a force. And this was only the beginning. The days after the talent show were a mix of emotions. Praise from teachers and classmates lifted her spirits, but doubt and jealousy lingered in corners. Whispers followed her in the hallways, sharp glances pricking at her confidence. One afternoon, heading to art class, she overheard students near the lockers. "I don't get why Hiroshi Tanaka is so obsessed with her," one said. "It's like he's making her the school mascot or something." Another laughed. "Maybe it's some publicity stunt." Mei-ling's heart sank. The idea that her achievements could be dismissed as a setup stung deeply. She wanted to explain, but instead gripped her sketchbook and kept walking. At recess, Aiko noticed Mei-ling sitting alone on a bench, eyes distant. "Hey," Aiko said softly, sitting beside her. "You okay?" Mei-ling nodded slowly. I just hate how people think everything I do is because of him. She glanced toward Hiroshi's office window, visible from the playground. Like I can't be good on my own. Aiko squeezed her hand. You are good on your own. You don't have to prove that to anyone. That evening, Mei-ling sketched quietly at the kitchen table while her mother cooked. Mrs. Chen glanced at her drawings, hopeful faces, blossoming flowers, and smiled. You have a gift, Mei-ling, don't let the noise drown it out. Mei-ling's voice was small. Sometimes it feels like the noise is all there is. Mrs. Chen sat beside her. I know, but light shines brightest in the darkest places. The next day, Mei-ling found a note in her locker, handwriting unfamiliar, words blunt, you don't belong here. This isn't your place. Rejection stung sharply. Tears threatened, but she took a deep breath, clutching the note. At lunch, Hiroshi noticed her quiet mood and sat beside her. I heard about the note. I'm sorry. Mei-ling shook her head. It's okay. I just don't get why people are so mean. Hiroshi's eyes softened. Sometimes fear makes people cruel. They see someone changing things, and instead of understanding, they attack. How do I stop feeling scared? Mei-ling asked. He smiled gently. By remembering why you started, because you believe in something better. When you focus on that, the fear shrinks. Inspired, Mei-ling decided not to hide anymore. The next morning, she stood taller, walked with purpose, and refused to let the whispers pull her down. During art class, she presented a new project idea, a mural celebrating the community's strength and diversity. The class hesitated at first, but when Ms. Lee encouraged everyone to participate, hands slowly rose. Even Sujin looked intrigued, though she stayed quiet. Over the next few weeks, the mural became a school-wide effort. Students painted scenes of unity, hope, and resilience on a large gym wall. Mei-ling found herself at the center, not because she sought attention, but because her passion was contagious. One afternoon, as they painted, Sujin approached quietly. I wanted to say, your song at the talent show was really good. And I like the mural. Mei-ling smiled, surprised. Thanks. Sujin hesitated. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. Mei-ling nodded. It's okay. People change. As the mural neared completion, a sense of pride settled over the school. The whispers faded, replaced by conversations about the stories on the wall, tales of people who faced hardship but stood strong. One afternoon, sunlight streaming through the gym windows, Mei-ling looked at the mural. She saw not just colors and shapes but a reflection of her journey, struggles, doubts, and the courage to keep going. The shadows she'd faced only made her light stronger. And with that light, she was ready for whatever came next. The week after the mural's completion felt like a turning point. The vibrant gym wall had become a symbol of the school's unity and Mei-ling's quiet resilience. As students and teachers gathered to admire it, Mei-ling navigated newfound respect and lingering tension. One afternoon, while adding final touches to the mural, a voice startled her. Mind if I join you? Mei-ling turned to see Ms. Park, the music teacher, known for her stern demeanor but with a softness in her eyes today. Sure, Mei-ling replied, stepping aside. Ms. Park picked up a paintbrush. I've been watching your work here. It's impressive. She hesitated, then added, I know things haven't been easy, the whispers, the notes. You've faced more than most kids your age. I see you, not just the girl with the dress or the scholarship, but the person behind it all. Mei-ling blinked, unsure how to respond. Ms. Park smiled gently. I was once in your shoes, feeling out of place, doubted, wondering if I belonged. It's hard, but it's a test of who you are. Mei-ling swallowed. What did you do? I found people who believed in me, like Mr. Tanaka believes in you, Ms. Park said. And I held on to that, even when the world tried to knock me down. Mei-ling nodded slowly. Sometimes I feel like giving up. Don't, Ms. Park said firmly. Your light is needed, more than you realize. Over the next few days, Ms. Park became an unexpected ally, encouraging Mei-ling to audition for the school choir and offering extra music lessons. Her support was steady, like a quiet river cutting through stone. One afternoon, as Mei-ling practiced a new song in the music room, Sujin entered quietly. Mei-ling tensed, expecting confrontation, but Sujin surprised her. Your singing is really good, Sujin said softly. Maybe I was wrong about you. Mei-ling blinked. Thank you. Sujin shrugged. Sometimes it's easier to be mean than to admit when you're wrong. Mei-ling smiled gently. It takes courage to admit that. Ms. Park, overhearing, smiled warmly. Why don't you two work on a duet for the next assembly? Sujin hesitated, then nodded. As rehearsals began, Mei-ling noticed a change, not just in Sujin, but in herself. The walls of fear and doubt were crumbling, replaced by bridges of understanding. One afternoon, while practicing a harmony, Sujin said, I never really understood what it meant to be brave until now. Mei Ling looked at her, surprised. Brave how? Standing up, even when people try to bring you down, Su Jin said, smiling shyly. I think you're braver than anyone I know. Mei Ling's heart swelled. Thank you. That means a lot. Outside the music room, the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the schoolyard. Mei Ling felt hope. She wasn't alone anymore. Teachers, friends, even those once distant were walking beside her. That evening, Hiroshi stopped by Mei Ling's home. I heard about the choir duet, he said, smiling. Sounds like you're making new friends. Mei Ling nodded. It's different, but good. Hiroshi looked thoughtful. Sometimes the hardest battles lead to the strongest bonds. Mei Ling gazed out her bedroom window, city lights twinkling. I'm ready for those battles, she said quietly. Because I know I don't have to face them alone. As the school year neared its end, Mei Ling understood that strength wasn't just standing tall alone, it was opening her heart, trusting others, and letting her light shine through the darkest shadows. With every note sung, every brushstroke painted, and every whispered word of support, her light grew brighter, ready to illuminate her path and those who followed. Spring waned, and the school's end-of-year celebration approached, a community gathering to honor students' hard work and growth. Mei Ling was asked to give a short speech, a task that thrilled and terrified her. For days, she rehearsed in front of the mirror, searching for words about courage, kindness, and unity. But fears crept in. What if her voice cracked? What if the whispers returned? What if she forgot her words? One afternoon, Ms. Park found her in the art room, staring at a blank paper. Writing your speech? She asked softly. Mei Ling nodded, biting her lip. I don't know what to say. I want it to matter. Ms. Park pulled up a chair. Sometimes the most important thing to say is the simplest, the truth. Mei Ling sighed. But what if my truth isn't what people want to hear? Her teacher smiled gently. Then you speak it anyway, because your truth might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Encouraged, Mei Ling took the blank paper home and began to write. She wrote about the dress that had started it all, the faded fabric and the pearls, the kindness of Hiroshi Tanaka, and the courage it took to believe in herself. She wrote about the whispers, the doubts, and the moments she almost gave up. But most importantly, she wrote about the power of community, friendship, and the strength found in lifting one another up. The night before the celebration, Mei Ling's nerves returned. She paced her room, clutching the paper. Mrs. Chen knocked gently and entered. You're ready, she said with quiet confidence. Mei Ling looked up. What if I mess up? Her mother sat beside her. Remember when you first learned to walk? You fell a lot, but you kept trying. Speaking is just like that. Sometimes you'll stumble, but you'll get back up. The day of the celebration arrived, bright and sunny. The gym was transformed with balloons, banners, and a stage decorated with flowers. Parents, teachers, and community members filled the seats, buzzing with excitement. Hiroshi was there, sitting near the front, his presence both reassuring and humbling. Mei Ling took a deep breath as she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on her face. She looked out at the crowd, some faces familiar, some strangers, but all waiting. My name is Mei Ling, she began, voice steady but soft. This year, I learned something important about courage. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about standing up even when you're afraid. It's about believing in yourself when others doubt you. She paused, scanning the room. I want to thank everyone who helped me, my family, my teachers, my friends, especially Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka, who showed me that sometimes one act of kindness can change a life. Mei Ling spoke of the dress that had once made her feel invisible, but now was a symbol of hope. She told them about the scholarship, the supply drive, and the mural, how all these things came from a simple belief in each other. When we lift each other up, we all shine brighter, she said, voice growing stronger. And no matter what anyone says, we all belong. The room erupted in applause. Mei Ling felt tears prick her eyes, not from fear, but from a deep, overwhelming joy. She had shared her truth, and it had been heard. After the speech, as the celebration continued with music and laughter, Su Jin approached once more. This time, her eyes held something different, respect. I'm sorry for how I acted, Su Jin said quietly. You're braver than I realized. Mei Ling smiled warmly. Thank you. And thank you for saying that. As the sun set outside, casting a golden glow through the windows, Mei Ling stood with Hiroshi and her mother. The journey had been difficult, full of challenges and doubts. But in this moment, surrounded by a community that had come together, she knew it was just the beginning of something beautiful. And with courage as her guide, Mei Ling was ready to face whatever the future held. The celebration had ended, but for Mei Ling, the journey was just beginning. The applause, the smiles, and the warm words from her speech had kindled something inside her, a desire to keep moving forward, to keep making a difference. In the days that followed, the school felt different. There was a sense of hope woven into the air, like spring itself had settled in the hearts of the students and teachers. Mei Ling noticed more kids helping each other, more laughter in the hallways, and fewer whispers meant to tear others down. One afternoon, Mrs. Kim called Mei Ling into her office. The principal's face was bright with a mixture of pride and excitement. "Mei Ling, I have a proposition for you." Mei Ling sat, curious. "We're starting a new mentorship program at the school," Mrs. Kim explained. "It's designed to connect younger students with older ones to foster guidance, friendship, and support. Given everything you've accomplished and the example you've set, we'd like you to be one of our first mentors." Mei Ling's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm only in 4th grade." Mrs. Kim smiled kindly. "That's the point. You've shown incredible leadership for your age. You understand what it means to face challenges and overcome them. You could inspire others to do the same." Mei Ling felt a surge of pride but also a flutter of nerves. "I'd love to," she said. Soon, the mentorship program was underway. Mei Ling was paired with a group of younger students, some of whom struggled with confidence or felt left out, like she once had. She shared her story with them, not just the successes, but the fears and mistakes, too. She listened to their worries and cheered their small victories. Meanwhile, Hiroshi continued to support the school's growing initiatives. He visited regularly, offering resources and encouragement, but always reminding Mei Ling and the others that the real strength came from within the community itself. One afternoon, as Mei Ling helped a shy first grader named Li Mei tie her shoes before class, Sujin approached with a group of friends. She smiled more openly now, her eyes holding no trace of the old bitterness. "Hey, Mei Ling," Sujin said. "I wanted to thank you for everything. You changed how I see things. Maybe even how I see myself." Mei Ling smiled. "Thank you, Sujin. That means a lot." The two girls shared a quiet moment of understanding, a bridge built from past struggles to present friendship. As spring deepened, the school hosted a community picnic on a sunny Saturday. Families, teachers, and neighbors gathered on the newly refurbished playground, sharing food, stories, and laughter. Mei Ling helped organize games and art activities for the kids, her energy infectious. Hiroshi arrived, greeting familiar faces with warmth. When he saw Mei Ling leading a group of children in a painting project, he nodded approvingly. Later, he pulled her aside. "You've done incredible things," he said softly. "But remember, change is a journey, not a destination. Keep leading with your heart." Mei Ling looked around at the happy faces, children, parents, teachers, and felt a deep sense of belonging. She had started as a quiet girl in a faded dress, uncertain and afraid. Now she was a beacon of hope, a spark igniting light in others. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Mei Ling sat with her mother on a picnic blanket. Mrs. Chen wrapped an arm around her daughter. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You've grown into someone truly remarkable." Mei Ling rested her head on her mother's shoulder, smiling. "I couldn't have done it without you. Or without everyone who believed in me." The breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the promise of new beginnings. As Mei Ling looked ahead, she knew this was just the start of a lifelong journey, one filled with courage, kindness, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest voices could change the world. Despite the momentum and newfound hope within the school community, challenges lingered. A few weeks after the picnic, as the school prepared for its final projects and summer activities, Mei Ling noticed subtle shifts, whispers returning, sideways glances lingering, and a quiet resistance from some corners she'd hoped were behind her. One chilly morning, while walking into school, Mei Ling overheard two students near the entrance. "She's just lucky because of Hiroshi Tanaka," one whispered. "Without him, she'd be nothing." The other nodded in agreement. The words cut through the crisp air, and Mei Ling's shoulders tightened, but she kept her pace steady. At recess, Sujin approached Mei Ling, her expression serious, even concerned. "Mei Ling, can I talk to you?" she asked quietly. Mei Ling nodded, curious but cautious. They found a quiet spot near the school garden. Sujin looked down at her shoes before speaking. "Some kids are saying things, worse things. They're saying you're trying to take over the school, that you want to control everything." Mei Ling sighed, the familiar weight settling in her chest. "I just want to help," she replied softly. "I know," Sujin said, looking up. "But people are scared of change. They don't always understand your intentions."